Go ahead and call the meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone to the March 12th, 2014 meeting of the PDC Board of Commissioners. With the opening of the meeting, I'd like to ask for roll call.
Commissioner Andrews, absent. Commissioner Dixon,
Here.
Commissioner Kelly,
Here.
Commissioner Moyle, absent. Acting Chair Will Hoyt.
Here. Thanks. I think everyone has an agenda in front of him or her, so we will just move right through the agenda, have several items to discuss and deliberate about today. So going into the meeting, I'll go ahead and ask for commissioner reports. I'll start with Commissioner Dixon.
I have nothing to report today, thank you, except for that it's a beautiful day outside.
This is true. Commissioner Kelly.
Two things that I was involved with, somewhat connected with this commission. One was the meeting on Monday in the, at City Hall regarding the project that we have over on Alberta and MLK, and it was a very positive meeting. And 3 weeks ago, I was on a panel with Rex Burkholder for a lecture series called Ilahi, and no matter what, I found out that you can't get away from the fact that you're a PDC commissioner when you are in some public forum like that, and I actually prepared myself quite well, and then nobody asked me any questions related to things like Lents and so on. So, but it was a good experience.
Always better to be prepared, that's for sure. I had the pleasure of participating earlier today in a Partners in Diversity CEO forum, and the focus of the segment that I participated in was regarding how CEOs need to prepare their companies for the impending change in the demographics and the composition of society and our workforce. George Brown from Legacy Health, Greg Goodwin from Cooney BMW, and Ed Blackburn from Central City Concern participated. And the one thing I will say regarding that platform, we at PDC have been talking about diversity and working on diversity and inclusion for years, and it predated my arrival at PDC, so I don't want to make it sound like it's a new thing. But sitting in the room and hearing CEOs at other organizations and participants within the audience talk about this issue, the theme is pretty consistent. It starts at the top. And I think with a lot of the events and activities that have been going on in the past 18 months, it's worth saying out loud that Director Quinton and the staff of PDC, in my opinion, have always been very focused on equity and inclusion issues. I think our record as far as dollars invested and how they've been invested speaks for itself. And I will say what I've always said, anyone and everyone can always do better. And I think we are always trying to do better, but I think it's important to note we have achieved some significant successes in our investment policies and related activities, and I don't want that to be lost on anyone. So I think it's important for you as staff and members of the public to hear it from me, and hopefully supported by my commissioners that PDC has worked very hard to bring equity to all of our investment activities. And I'm very proud to be a member of PDC's commission and to be active with this organization. The second part of the program today dealt with education, and we've heard a lot about education over the last, I'll say, 2 decades. It's always something we want to focus on, but similarly, the composition of our schools is changing, and that composition is going to translate into the workforce. So the discussion was centering on some of the things that we've been talking about at PDC, whether kids go to college or whether they go to vocational training or other platforms that basically prepare them for a family wage job, and I think we played a role in that as well. So very engaged audience, very well participated event. Happy to be a part of it and happy to represent PDC in that venue. With that, I will turn it over to Director Quinton for his report.
Thank you very much, Chair Will Hoyt, and good afternoon, commissioners, on this nice sunny day. Yeah, I actually was in the audience this morning, got to listen to our commissioner and the other individuals he mentioned. It was a very well attended event in terms of CEOs and other business leadership, and I really appreciate your remarks. Now, it is important to us, and we do take it seriously. But I was going to say, but you beat me to it. Is we always strive to do better. So I never say that the work is done, but I know that it's very important for us at this moment, both internally, how we operate, what our staff looks like, but also how we work externally. We can always get better. And, just thinking about all the leadership in the room this morning, everybody has definitely the right intentions, but I think, we need to see the results before we can judge the effectiveness of all this, but everyone seems to be heading in the right direction. Before I get into my update, I also want to congratulate Commissioner Wilhoit on, I think this has happened since our last board meeting, but you were recently named to the advisory board for the Federal Reserve for the Western region, right? What's it officially known as?
I can't say anything about
Oh, that's right, it's top secret.
It's the Economic Advisory Council for the 12th District of the Federal Reserve.
Right.
So looking forward to working in that capacity.
So another thing that will take you away from your day job, right?
For a good reason.
Yeah, no, but it's nice to have Portland leadership represented in that regional, Western region conversation, so congratulations on that. They made a great choice. So as Commissioner Kelly mentioned, we participated in a conversation on Monday morning that got a lot of press coverage, as everything surrounding Trader Joe's does. And it was a very productive meeting. Out of that meeting came the announcement that the mayor would seek to reach out again to Trader Joe's and ask that they reconsider their decision and restart the project on Alberta and MLK. And the project that was proposed was approved by this board. Very positive announcement. In addition, what was also announced there was a tentative commitment to provide another $20 million in affordable housing dollars from PDC over the next 5 years. I did tell everybody in the room that was subject to PDC board approval. Commissioner Kelly can be my witness, also subject to city council approval.
Witnessed.
Pardon?
So witnessed.
Yes. So, and city council, obviously, serving as our budget committee, has approval over this. So there will be more conversation around it. I do think it's a very important topic. I think from a staff perspective, we have, in addition to the attention brought to this by PALF, which is, they deserve a ton of credit for really highlighting the affordable housing issue. We have, as a staff, been watching the market dynamics in North and Northeast Portland for a while now, and trying to figure out how to best use our dollars. And so the idea of putting more money into affordable housing was something that we were beginning to think about, and this created a greater sense of urgency about it. So we will propose it in our next budget, and you will review it in April. And so we can have that conversation in full then, and I'd be happy to organize any kind of testimony, presentation around that particular topic, if you'd like that to help with your conversation. In addition, another similar kind of newsy type of story was the discussion in the news around proposed URA changes. We've been briefing you on a regular basis on the different conversations that have been going on and with the mayor, us providing the mayor with different analysis on potential changes to URAs, different scenarios. Those are still in conversation at City Council. So I think most of the stories covered this accurately, but I just want to reiterate: there's nothing has been decided, and I think there's still far more discussion and public conversation about it. But there is. I should stop.
Charles is losing his job so soon.
I'm settled all in. Forget it.
We need to adjourn and
How much he trusted me, boy. He was zooming on the highway.
Paid the pilot off to land early.
He didn't want to take any chances.
Our board chair just arrived straight from the airport, for those of you who are watching. So as I was saying, we still have a fair amount of conversation to happen before any proposed URA changes go before anybody, but they would come here first. This board would review any proposed urban renewal area changes, but the legal power to change urban renewal areas resides with City Council. So that's ultimately where the decision will be made, but this is somewhat of a preliminary airing of the thinking around that. So now on to kind of more the the news since our last meeting, that one of the big announcements that we had in February was the announcement that Portland is now back in the running for Google Fiber. We had participated in a nationwide contest back in 2010. A number of cities proposed to have Google be the first test market for Google Fiber. Google comes in and builds out a fiber network based on demand within a particular area. They offered that up to one city, one metro area 4 years ago. We competed and did not win. Kansas City, Kansas actually was the winner of that. And so we were quite disappointed at that point, but we still, we were, the office of the city that handles these kind of franchises was continuing to work on various options for bringing greater competition within the broadband market to Portland. And then we were approached again by Google a few months back saying they're now expanding their project and they're opening it up to, I think, 34 different cities, and we were one of them. And what they told us in some of these meetings a few months back was that they always liked Portland and thought that they should be in Portland, but that the way that Google Fiber builds out a network is really dependent on working with a number of different utility providers, and that Kansas City, Kansas had a publicly owned utility, and so it made sense for them to start with a single entity. They're now expanding and thinking about how to work in other markets where it's both private and publicly owned utilities, and so they're excited about having us in the running. So the city franchise office is organizing a task force that includes not just city bureaus, and PDC has staff, multiple staff on that task force, but it's organizing a task force across 6, 7, and more different communities within the region, because if Google comes in, they really do want to serve more than just the city of Portland. And as you saw from the press conference, cities like Beaverton and Hillsborough and Gresham are all anxious to be involved in this. So the timeline is short. We have roughly about 2 months to put together a pretty extensive package on a lot of very detailed things. A lot of it's just around the permitting land use process for building out a network of this size. But I'm confident we're gonna put a great package together. Mary Beth Henry runs that office for the city, and she's an all-star and very committed to this. She's very committed to creating greater access to broadband services. And from an economic development perspective, I think it goes without saying this is an important announcement for us. Since our last board meeting, as you know, I've been updating you on the ULI Rose Fellowship process. I think during our last board meeting, folks were here in town visiting Portland, and then I did my trip to Indianapolis 2 weeks after that. So that was a great trip, very informative. I was able to share some of our lessons learned here in Portland with their particular challenge, which is, I think a really complex challenge they have, which is trying to revitalize an industrial corridor that resides in a residential neighborhood, and both the industrial corridor and the residential neighborhood have experienced significant disinvestment, and so there's a lot of challenges, and it really requires a comprehensive approach, not just to revitalizing the industrial area, but that the two areas rely on each other, and so there has to be a residential neighborhood strategy as well. So gave them our recommendations, and I got to get out of town. They get to do the hard work, but it was a great experience. While I was out, I missed what everybody that I talked to describes as one of the best events that PDC has ever hosted. It was an event that I mentioned at our previous board meeting called Include, Innovate, Invest. And it was a gathering of about 300 people to talk about how do we make entrepreneurship in the technology sector here in Portland more inclusive. And so we had a panel of speakers, all entrepreneurs of color, who talked about their experiences, both kind of about their company, but also their personal experiences and what it was like to be a person of color trying to start a business, trying to raise money, going to venture capitalists, what it's like, and how the experience is very different if you're not a white male. And then the other feedback I heard from the meeting was that just the interactions among the people in the room were fantastic, a very diverse crowd. So this was the kickoff to this conversation that we want to start around how do we make technology and entrepreneurship in Portland more diverse, more inclusive. We're having another event. We're working with Digital Undivided on another event here next week, March 19th, but this is all leading up to the launch of our Startup PDX Challenge in May, which will have, as I've told you, a focus on minority and women entrepreneurs. We had the event was hosted by one of our leading light companies, Puppet Labs, at their space, but they just announced their expansion as well, right on the same time. They're moving downtown to accommodate growth to up to 500 employees. What's the building? That's the yeah. That was a building that had a lot of federal offices in it. Yeah, Robert Duncan Plaza. So great news. Once again, we like to see these companies grow and then find other space in the central city if they're here or staying in Portland. A couple other company announcements. A company named Cozy just announced that they're consolidating their joint operations. They had San Francisco and Portland operations here in Portland. Great quote in the newspaper in which they said that they were offering their employees the opportunity to be in either one of their offices, and everybody they offered it to wanted to be in Portland. So they just said, let's just move everybody up to Portland. Squarespace, another tech company based in New York, has announced they're opening a big service center here in the spring in Portland. So this will be a second site for them. They'll still be headquartered in New York, but they'll hire initially about a dozen people, but that could grow to about 100 in the next few years. Company named Simple, one of the kind of well-known startups that raised a lot of venture capital money. They were kind of an alternative to doing business with traditional banks. They're kind of a front-end technology platform for doing your banking. They were bought by the Spanish banking group BBVA, and they were bought for $117 million. So the $100 million threshold is always a big number for kind of measuring the exits, and so it's rare that we get $100 million exits, and so this was a great sign. A lot of people feel like it's the first of many. And then we also had another company, a company called Visify, which was funded by the Portland Seed Fund. They were bought by Yahoo. Unfortunately, Visify will have to move to San Francisco, to the Bay Area, as part of this. Yahoo's actually absorbing Visify and taking their technology, and they'll be using it under Yahoo's brand. So Visify won't exist, but the technology will, and the seed fund gets a nice return on that investment. So the seed fund is doing quite well in their investments. It'll be interesting to see what the ultimate payout is in a few years. A few more events since the last meeting. I got a chance to appear with Commissioner Steve Novick at a celebration with the National College of Natural Medicine. They have a campus that's based in our North Macadam urban renewal area, just up from South Waterfront. We've been working with them extensively over the past few years to build out different traffic and safety improvements. They're in this kind of strange landlocked area where there's many streets around them that are almost impossible to cross. Their students have a hard time getting there. They have a hard time accessing bus stops. And so this was the latest round of transportation improvements. We provided $100,000. The state provided $500,000. And so they have, so if you go down to their part of South Portland, you can see some of the safety improvements, crosswalks, flashing lights, whatnot. On February 25th, Southeast Work celebrated the expansion of its Workforce Portland Metro Southeast Center on Foster Road in Lents. We provided a community livability grant for this project, which is part of a larger effort around revitalization around 82nd and Foster, which is in the Lents URA. Just on Monday night, I actually had the opportunity to participate in the 10th anniversary of the PSU Business Accelerator. The PSU Business Accelerator, I learned the history precedes my time here. We actually, PDC had a role in the formation of the accelerator. We helped commission a study that highlighted the need for PSU to have an incubator type building. And then I think we've provided a lot of support over the years, including over about $1.5 million we provided, I think, 4 years ago to build out the wet lab that has been so successful in that space. And then later on that evening, I had my moment under the lights over at Jimmy Mac's with the Bright Lights, monthly Bright Lights event. So it was a nice Q&A and got a lot of tough questions thrown at me around all the newsworthy items of the past few months. So that was fun. It was fun to see a lot of familiar faces in the audience. Just an update on our export work and international work. Brookings last month selected us for the next round of its initiatives. They did the export work. Now they're looking at foreign direct investment. So we'll begin a whole nother process in which we do research on the level of foreign investment that comes into the Portland region and steps that we can take to grow it. Around that same time, we had a visit from Chandra Brown, who works in the Obama administration now, used to be the president of United Streetcar. She was on a national listening tour that they do, and mainly around the National Export Initiative. So Portland was one of the few cities that got visited by Chandra, she talked extensively about how well our efforts are received in Washington, but she wanted to find out what companies on the ground were doing and what help her department could provide. And just a reminder that we have our International Business Awards coming up on May 19th, and so we took nominations for the award for the companies to receive the awards. And I think we have, they're secret, but I think we have the actual nominees. So I think maybe at a future board meeting, we can talk about them. But that's always a big event to celebrate our international work. And then the last one, which I think I may have mentioned to some of you in our briefings, but we did close out the Grove Hotel RFP, and so now we're in the selection phase. But I can reveal that we received 11 responses to the Grove Hotel. So there's definitely a lot of interest in not just this project, but I think it signals interest in this part of town. So I want to finish, as I always do, with recognizing a new employee, and we have the very interesting moment where we have hired back a previous PDC employee. So Shelley Hack is sitting right here in the front row. Shelley was in the housing department here at PDC for many years, and then left when PHB was created, and then moved on after that. And we hired her back to join our new R&D team, what we call the Opportunities Cooperative, Peter Englander's team. And what we were looking for is somebody who really could take some of the new ideas we've had for new business lines, new ways to attract capital to our projects, and do a lot of the business planning and modeling around these ideas to see if they make any financial sense. And Shelley's has deep experience running loan funds and raising capital for projects, and then also when she was here, she was running programs that were mainly around how do we finance a lot of our housing projects. So Shelley has joined us on, how long you been here? What is this week? On the 20th, right? So not even a month. She sits right next to me now in our new open space on the 7th floor. So Shelley and I are spending a lot of time together. But it's good to have Shelley back at PDC. That's what I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Patrick. Welcome back, Shelley. We'll start by apologizing for being a little late today and thanking Charles for stepping in for me. I had to be in another meeting in Southern California, and the best plane that I could get was supposed to land at 2:58, so I didn't do too badly.
Oh, you didn't?
Those circumstances. Great report. Lots going on. I mean, we all feel it. We read about it, and we're continuing to see it. Next item on the agenda are the meeting minutes for February 12th, 2014. I will point out that we still have not approved the January 9th Amendment meeting minutes, but we don't have the proper people here to get that done. So I would look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any changes, additions, subtractions, discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Next item, public comment for items not on the agenda.
Chair, can I since she just showed up, I wouldn't have a chance. I would like to notice that we are going to ask for an executive session at the end of, so there's a change to the agenda. We're not going to take up action item 7, and we'd like to have an executive session at the end of the board meeting to discuss an aspect of this deal, not to take action on the deal, but to discuss an aspect of this deal, so that we can get the board's feedback on one aspect of this transaction.
Okay. Eric, that means I have to adjourn the local contract review board and reopen the board meeting. Okay. Okay, got it. Thank you. So again, public comment for items not on the agenda. I don't have anybody signed up. Always want to make sure that we haven't missed anybody in the audience. It looks like we're good for today. So first action item is a consent item authorizing the executive director to enter into intergovernmental agreement with Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, which includes the conveyance of portions of RiverPlace parcels 3 and 4 for an in-kind contribution of $1,780,403 for the Portland Milwaukie Light Rail Project. This is resolution 7041. I'd look for a motion to approve.
I move approval.
Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are moving. So the next item we are taking off the agenda. So we are on to resolution 7043, action item approving a lease agreement for Portland Development Commission owned property at 5716 Southeast 92nd Avenue in the Lents Town Center. This is for the Z House development. We have Trang and Bruce. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, Executive Director Quinton. My name is Trang Lam, Neighborhood Manager.
I'm Bruce Wood, Real Estate Manager.
Bruce and I are here today to get approval of a lease agreement for PDC-owned property at, there we go. Bruce and I are here today to get approval for a lease agreement for PDC-owned property at 5716 Southeast 92nd Avenue, also known as our Bakery Block, in the Lents Town Center Urban Renewal area. This action furthers our work in the Town Center and fully aligns with the Lents 5-year action plan. I'd like to take a moment to brief you on the 5-year action plan today, coming back in April to the board with a final plan for acceptance. PDC has been working with our bureau partners and the NED, or Neighborhood Economic Development Leadership Redevelopment Subcommittee, on drafting the 5-year action plan. The chair of the NED Leadership Subcommittee is here today, Annette Matson, and she'll be testifying on behalf of this project later. I'd like to quickly thank Annette for being here and also for working on the action plan. As you know, the Lents urban renewal area is the second largest urban renewal area in Portland at a little over 2,800 acres. It touches 6 neighborhoods, 3 unique business districts, and at the heart of the URA, a highly accessible town center. The plan focuses its objectives and actions on 4 geographic areas. The commercial area, which is highlighted in red above, so all of these. The neighborhood centers, which are the 2 blue nodes. This is the town center one, and this is what we call the West Foster node. The residential geographic areas in the yellow, and then finally our industrial geographic area in gray. The action plan brings together goals from the Lents Town Center Urban Renewal Area Plan, the Neighborhood Economic Development Strategy, the Portland Plan, and other strategies that are in place to date. And most notably, the action plan updates our approaches in the neighborhood center areas. The plan includes specific approaches for each geographic area, defining focus and achievable objectives and actions for the next 5 years. In the neighborhood centers, which would include the town center and the West Foster node, which is along Foster between 64th and 72nd, the objectives are to stimulate development that positively changes the reputation and increases the vitality of the town center. And then also to leverage infrastructure improvements to facilitate placemaking along the West Foster node by tenanting and redeveloping PDC-owned property, promoting private investments, and supporting businesses. In our commercial corridor, which includes the 82nd Avenue, Powell Boulevard, 122nd Avenue, and the full Foster corridor, the objective is to increase safety and vitality in the commercial corridor. In the industrial area along East Foster, the objective is to intensify industrial uses and solve for the 100-year flooding. And finally, in our residential geography, we're trying to stabilize housing prices and preserve housing affordability for homeowners and renters. The action plan will guide PDC's investment in Lents for the next 5 years, with significant resources committed to the neighborhood centers. The two actions before you today, the Haus LLC lease, as well as the one that's coming up, the Mercado project, are both in our neighborhood centers. I'm going to briefly talk about these two nodes for you. In the West Foster node between 64th, also known as the heart of Foster, and then 72nd, also known as the Green Link because of its connection to the Fernland Parkway. We're trying to leverage the Foster Streetscape project to promote redevelopment and create safe and attractive destinations. The Mercado project, which Gina Bell and Bruce Wood will be presenting in more detail, highlights a project that aligns with the action plan by creating a regional destination at the connection of the Green Link to Foster Road. It redevelops a vacant PDC property and supports emerging micro enterprises. In the Lents Town Center, the action plan outlines an approach that phases in development, concentrating initial focus investments along 92nd Avenue to promote redevelopment and occupancy of vacant buildings. 92nd serves as the pedestrian-friendly Main Street in the town center with updated storefronts, including the Working Class Acupuncture, El Pato Feliz, and the Eagle Eye Tavern. So all of those up here are highlighted in yellow. The bakery block is right here. The addition of Haus will activate a PDC-owned vacant building, bring commercial activity to 92nd Avenue, which will help draw in new visitors and foot traffic to the town center. It anchors 92nd retail with a community-desired amenity, and finally, it adds local jobs. I'm going to hand this over to Bruce to talk about the transaction in more detail. And again, we'll be coming back in April with the full action plan.
Okay, our screen here isn't on, so that's why I'm going to turn and not look at you, if that's okay, so I can read this up at the top here. Okay, the action before us today is a lease. Why? There we go. Public benefits. There we go. Okay, the action for us today is a lease, and it's a very standard lease. It's a triple net. It's a market rate transaction. So I'm just going to go over some of the highlights. It's 10,000 square feet. It's a triple net lease. The tenant's responsible for all the property taxes, insurance, and maintenance on the building. It's a 10-year lease with 2 5-year options to extend. The base rent starts out at $4,583 a month, and what we did was we took a kind of a standard free rent period that's common in commercial leases and just spread it out over the year. So the rent for the first few months is $4,583 a month, but then starting in the 13th month, it goes up to $11 a square foot net at $9,167. In the 61st month, there's a annual CPI increase annually thereafter, and it's a CPI min and max where it's no less than 2% and no more than 5% based upon the change in CPI. There's a tenant improvement allowance of $250,000, $25 a square foot. And then I wanted to mention that the PDC is also doing some shell and core improvements to the building that are just capital improvements that have to be done for anybody to occupy the space. And that's a total of approximately $389,000. So the total project costs, again, I've netted out the capital costs in this, is $1,425,000. There's owner equity involved at $240,000. They've secured a loan from Albina Community Bank of $375,000. They've also got some equipment financing in place for $100,000. There's the PDC TI allowance. The PDC has approved a loan of $450,000 that was approved by the executive director previously under his delegated authority. And then there's a storefront grant that we also issued. So the action today, it's approving a lease agreement for the PDC-owned property at 5716 Southeast 92nd Avenue in the Lents Town Center Urban Renewal area. The principals of Z Haus are here if you have any questions for them, but otherwise we're open to anything else you want to talk about.
So we do have a couple people signed up that we'll get testimony from, and maybe these are, I don't think these are the owners. We'll start
Chad
with
and
them
Alan?
and then bring the owners up as well. Why don't we do that? So we have Nick Christensen and Annette Matson.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and Executive Director Quinton. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Annette Matson. I'm a member of PDC's Neighborhood Economic Development Leadership Committee, and I chair the NED Redevelopment Subcommittee. I have served on the Lents URAC, the 122nd Avenue Study and Rezone Committees, and on the David Douglas School Board. Since 1998, I have lived where the Lents URA overlaps with the Powellhurst-Gilbert and Pleasant Valley neighborhoods. I'm also a member of the Zenger Farm Board of Directors. I'm here to testify in support of a project that will further the Lents 5-year action plan, a project that PDC has been working on for over a year and is supported by the action plan and by area stakeholders. PDC has laid solid groundwork since 1998 by investing over $90 million of public investments in city infrastructure and facilities, redevelopment, business development, transportation, and affordable housing. However, many of the hoped-for retail amenities, private investment, and job growth have yet to materialize in the Lents Town Center. The action plan lays out a path for the next 5 years that focuses investments, especially for the town center, that will have the most impact. We are encouraged by the action plan and its calculated risk-taking for the town center. Approval of this lease will kick us off in the right direction, bringing in an amenity that will serve and be patronized by both the neighborhood and broader community residents. A brewery and a brew pub are on the list of desired businesses by community stakeholders and have been for years. Z Haus Brewing will help anchor the 92nd Avenue commercial area and bring new activity and foot traffic to the area. It will create local jobs. The Lents Town Center is the nearest business district to my home. Having raised a family, I know how important it is to have places where people can go out to eat with their kids without resorting to fast food. That is a great amenity for any community, and it's one of the things that makes for a complete and healthy neighborhood. Right now, in the Lents Town Center, having real choices for a place to eat out means traveling a couple of miles or more. Please approve the resolution before you. We are anxious to get started in supporting the success of Z Haus Brewery and the Brew Pub. Thank you.
Chair Andrews, Commissioners, Director Quinton, thanks for your time today. In my 5 years in Lents, I've seen many highs and lows in our community development process. This process has been part of a century-long commitment from the City of Portland to help the Lents community realize its destiny as a premier neighborhood in our city. Never since I arrived in 2009 has there been so much hope and excitement about the trajectory of our neighborhood. When you care about Lents, like many of us residents do, you end up not just being a Lents resident, you wind up being a Lents salesperson. And many of us have spent the last couple of years trying to convince our friends and neighbors to invest in our community. Some of the responses we've heard from people when we say Lents is a good place to invest include it's too far from where I work, it's too far from where I socialize, there are no amenities in the neighborhood for me, and I'm just better off investing my money somewhere else. In the last couple of months, those answers are starting to fade. Z Haus's presence will be a family-oriented amenity that will make people feel comfortable about making long-term investments in our community, be they prospective homeowners, a landlord, or other businesses. It's something the community wants. When we posted the link to the Oregon Live story about the upcoming vote that you guys are about to make, we posted that on Facebook. More than 40 Lents community members liked it and indicated that they wanted to see this happen. Universal praise for what you guys are about to do, and we appreciate it. This will help bolster our Main Street on 92nd Avenue and help support the choice we've made to focus our investment off of Foster Road and onto 92nd. We have more work to do. We need more jobs in East Portland, in Lents and in Gateway, so that people can choose to live close to where they work. We need to find a way to cut the $1 million a year that Lents residents pay in flood insurance premiums. We need to fund the Lents Park Master Plan. But this is a great step forward. And on the behalf of my 20,000 Lents neighbors, I welcome the PDC's approval of this proposal and look forward to welcoming Z Haus Brewing to our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank the two of you for spending the time with us today and for your service and your passion for the neighborhood and listening to your volunteer service. Thank you for what you do for the city as well. Before you step down, I want to make sure that there isn't a question from any of the other commissioners at this point. Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Escape to the sunshine now.
Bruce, Trang, do you want to? Should we give our owners an opportunity to come forward?
Welcome. Sure, okay.
Sorry to put you on the spot, but that's what happens when you.
We almost got through.
Why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourselves and about this particular project?
I'm going to go first? Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Chad Renneker, and I'm one of the partners of Z Haus, and I'm grateful to be here today in front of you, and we're very anxious to get started and get this project moving forward. On behalf of the other partners of Z Haus, I guess I could say that this has been a very thoughtful and very thorough process that we've gone through so far, and you should feel comfortable in knowing that the staff at PDC has done a very thorough job of analyzing our business plan and our model and our creditworthiness, and you should feel comfort in that. I'm a real estate developer, and for the last 20 years, I've been in the business of building communities in various western states, and in the last few years, I've noticed that brew pubs are a real effective tool in providing an effective catalyst for redeveloping areas that are similar to Lents in lots of different communities. And I'm not the smartest guy, so I've had to spend a lot of time in brew pubs doing research to come to this conclusion, but I have. And what I've learned that no matter what city you're in, there's really nothing better than being somewhere enjoying a cold beer in a neighborhood brew pub, watching a brewmaster at his craft with happiness all around you and a thriving community. And there's nothing really better than that. And we had the good fortune a couple of years ago to put this to the test at Pints Brewing, just down the street here. And even though that's a small and fairly experimental brewery, it did solidify to us that even though you may be in a dead zone of Old Town, people will still come to a place that has a good atmosphere and provides good food and great beer. So we plan to take this model to different locations, even beyond Lents in other cities, because we really believe that this is a powerful tool for turning neighborhoods around. Everyone loves a brew pub. And so we're anxious to get started on this, and we're really excited to see what kind of impact that our project will have on the Lents community and the good folks that live there.
My name is Alan Taylor. Excuse me. I'm the brewmaster at Pines Brewing currently. I have about 17 years of professional brewing experience. I started brewing in Berlin, Germany, got my brewing degree there, worked in Bavaria for a little bit. Also ran some breweries, worked in breweries in Oregon and California. I've been working on this project, the Z Haus project, for about 2.5 years altogether. We ended up talking to one of the PDC employees about real estate possibilities about 1.5 years ago. At that point, the bakery blocks were still under contract to the former occupants. But we kept an eye on that property, and a gentleman we knew from the brokerage firm that is working with PDC on this contacted us saying, hey, this has just opened up. Why don't you take a look? So we got in touch with PDC, looked at it, and we've been working for about 1 year to really hammer out what we want to do. And like Chad mentioned, there's very due diligence was done on the part of the PDC to make sure that everything we have is Hand und Fuß in German. Sorry, I can't think of the English word for it right now. That happens to me sometimes under stress. But we're really looking forward to this opportunity. It has a lot of great parts to it. The building itself may not work well for a lot of other things, but it does work well for a brewery. And we think the location is good. There's things we've looked at for the last 2.5 years to find a spot for this project. And location is good. It has good bones. We just need to really fix up some of the problems with the building that are very small but need to be done, and then we'll be ready to go. So we also look forward to doing this and appreciate your support.
Thank you for coming up. I have one question, others may have some, and then we will bring staff up and we'll have some tougher questions for them, but I'm glad to hear that they've done their due diligence. And interestingly enough, as I was driving in from the airport, I was listening to the news, and the radio report was from one of the editors of our local business magazines, and his comment was that he kind of wondered about this being successful because he didn't see it as being a destination restaurant. And I was scratching my head at that because I was thinking that brew pubs in general aren't destination restaurants. So I kind of wanted to get your reaction to that thought, and where do you really expect the folks who are going to use this to come from?
Well, our brokers looked at a 5-mile driving radius to look at who's around us and look at the demographics. And we're also looking at a place over in Beaverton at the same time. And we found the demographics were quite similar in the 5-mile drive radius between the area in Beaverton we're looking at and this part of East Portland. So we anticipate it being that a place that the locals will come to. We also do anticipate people within a 5-mile radius to show up, either for lunch or for dinner, happy hour, dinner with the family, after a ball game. The park's right up the street from us. We anticipate seeing people like that showing up as well. If you look at destinations, I used to work at Widmer Brothers Brewing. The Gast House down there is not in a neighborhood, and it is always full.
Sure.
It is a destination brew pub. So when people know there's good food and good beer, they will show up. Yeah.
So this is really a combination of neighborhood amenity and a lot of support from the neighborhood, but still expect to see some customers that come from outside. Very interesting. Thank you. Charles, you seem to be chomping at the bit. You got a question?
Oh, no, I'm just happy to see such a significant investment in the Lents downtown area and to have investors such as yourselves and the community so excited about the project. So I don't have any questions. I just wish you the best of luck.
Commissioner Kelly?
No questions. I should reflect what he just said.
Commissioner Dixon?
I just would like to say I am not a huge beer drinker, and the thought of a cold beer right now sounds actually really nice. But I work in this district, and my younger brother, who loves beer, he said, let's go to Pints one of these days. And so I was like, no, I don't really care for it. And so he forced me to go, and I really enjoyed your beer. So I just want to say congratulations for that, because you've turned a non-beer lover into someone who enjoys your beers in particular, but also just the family-friendly atmosphere. And I feel like Lents is going to have this treasured jewel in their neighborhood, and they're going to be the people that make it potentially a destination spot for other people to come in. So kudos to your creativity on this project and investing in a neighborhood where there's so much community support and excitement for such a project.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Trang, Bruce, can we bring you back to the table?
Thank you.
For a
Thank
couple
you.
questions? Thanks again. So I just wanted to start by saying, I too am really excited to see this long vacant location reoccupied. I think the only people who were more disappointed than this board for the Ararat Bakery to fail were the bakery owners themselves in the neighborhood, and it's a long time coming. The economics of the deal from a marketplace makes sense to me. I just want to make sure people recognize the other repairs that we're doing to the building, which was about $400,000 worth. And my understanding is we're basically new electrical system, new water line, and a sprinkler system.
Yeah, it's a very extensive, the building was, it was a change of use. And it was an unsprinklered building, very old. and we're upgrading all the fire life and safety systems, the mechanical systems, as you mentioned, as well as the services to the building. That's the majority of that amount.
Okay. And before I forget, we also did get a letter from the Chair, Land Use Chair, Vice Chair, and Secretary of the Lents Neighborhood Association, and that will become part of the minutes. Those were the questions that I had. Why don't I start with you, Commissioner Dixon? Do you have other?
No, I was just mostly, in terms of this project, pleased. Like I said, I think that we've heard a lot about the Lents district and the need for economic vitality in the neighborhood, and we have really passionate community members when they come down here speaking of projects for us to invest in, and this seems like a really appropriate project. So I like the community support, like I said, that's behind it. I think that the idea of an inclusive neighborhood with a destination location for people to meet family and having 24 jobs being created from this is a very positive news story. So congratulations. I'm glad to hear all of the thorough work that you have done in terms of staff here as well.
Commissioner Kelly?
I think any concerns or question I have had or have been answered.
Commissioner Wilhoit?
I think I killed all the suspense when I wished Chad and Alan luck, but we'll go ahead and go through with the vote.
Me too. Here.
We'll go ahead and vote. Okay, we are looking at Resolution 7043, action item approving a lease agreement for Portland Development Commission-owned property at 5716 Southeast 92nd Avenue in the Lents Town Center, urban renewal area. Looking for a motion to approve.
Let the new beer drinker make the motion there.
So moved.
I second it.
Third. Any further discussion, question, comment? You're thirsty. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Thank you very much. Can't wait to visit the opening, and really looking forward to the presentation in April on the Lents Action Plan.
Thank you.
I think people are going to be very excited about that.
I'm looking forward to it too.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, next item is also an action item, another lease, Resolution 7044, approving a lease agreement for Portland Development Commission-owned property at 7238 Southeast Foster Road in the Lents Town Center urban renewal area. Hello again, Bruce. Hello, Gina.
And I just need to also note a conflict of interest here prior to this.
So is it indirect so that you can participate, or
Yes.
direct? Indirect so you can participate. Very good, thank you.
She needs to read this, she's going to
I
read the
guess I
statement.
need to read the statement, okay. As you know, I'm Vice President of Colas Construction. I would like to disclose that Colas Construction has had business dealings in the past with Hacienda Community Development Corporation, the managing member of the development on the Mercado project. However, Colas Construction has no interest or involvement in the Mercado project. As such, in accordance with state law and on advice of PDC Council, I am declaring this relationship, but will participate in this matter. Thanks.
Thank you. You have the floor.
Buenas tardes. Yo soy Gina Bell, the Relationship Manager for PDC for the Portland Mercado. We're pleased to present this action item to authorize the execution of a 5-year lease between PDC and the Portland Mercado LLC, whose managing member is Hacienda Community Development Corporation. This is for a PDC-owned parcel at Southeast 72nd and Foster Road in the Lents Town Center urban renewal area. The Mercado will be a year-round Latino-inspired market, providing culturally specific food, goods, and services, as well as serve as a convening space. It has the potential to spur transformation of this neighborhood. I'll spend the next couple of minutes talking about the background of the project and the community benefits, and then I'll turn it over to Bruce to talk about the lease and how this agreement works together with other PDC financing. So you've seen this map already. This is the location of the project. The Mercado will be located as depicted by the green arrow labeled Mercado. It's a PDC property. PDC purchased the property in 2011. The property is located in the Foster West node, as Trang mentioned, And Hacienda has been working on the Mercado concept since 2011 as well. The site was selected in 2012 following the completion of a DOS grant from PDC, which established the feasibility of this business concept. This is where the property is and how it looks today. This is the street level view of how the property will look following renovations made by Hacienda. As I mentioned, Hacienda has been planning this for a couple of years. During that time, they formed the Asamblea, which is a group of low-income entrepreneurs, many of whom will have businesses at the Mercado, and they came together to oversee the creation of the Mercado business and membership. They've also done extensive outreach in the community. We've received letters of support from the Foster Powell and Mount Scott Arletta board chairs who couldn't be here today in person to show their support. Here's the plan view of the property. As you can see, not only the renovation of the building will occur, but also significant investments to improve the surface lot, as well as make space for food carts and create a plaza. And construction is anticipated to begin in May of 2014 and is slated for a November completion. Overall, Hacienda's investment will result in a significant improvement of a very underutilized and vacant property. The project will create a landmark cultural institution and serve as an economic development opportunity for many low-income business owners and business owners of color. It will be home to 19 small businesses, including 4 retail businesses, 4 permanent food stalls, 3 offices, and 8 food carts. The project will also include a commercial kitchen, a dining hall, and a market hall for day sales. Further, it's anticipated that the project will create an estimated 35 jobs when fully operational. The increased foot traffic and draw of new visitors will benefit other area businesses in the commercial corridor. It fully aligns with PDC's Lents action plan and the neighborhood economic development strategy, and it leveraged $1.3 million in funding from federal and other sources. So Bruce is going to share the lease information, and then Victor Merced, the executive director of Hacienda, is here, as well as Monica Moreno, who is a vendor at the market, or hopes to be a vendor at the market.
Okay. Again, the action before you is a lease. It's very different than the Haus lease, and I'll go into some detail about that. The total premises size is 6,776 rentable square feet. The term is 5 years with a 5-year option to extend. The rent in this case, though, is only $1. It's a de minimis sum of $1 a year, and I'll get into that in a minute. Because the rent is structured to provide a sufficient cash flow to service $900,000 of PDC loans that were also have been approved previously by the executive director under his delegated authority. The option rent, it's for the 61st month moving forward, it's mutually agreed upon and structured to support a 1.15 debt service coverage. It's a triple net lease, so Mercado will pay for all the operating expenses associated with the property, including property maintenance, property insurance, real and personal property taxes. The use, as Gina stated previously, it's the operation of the Portland Mercado, including the permitting of spaces to individual food vendors and small business operators. So they'll be subleasing the space to those folks. Landlord's work, the tenant is taking the premises in as-is condition. Again, very different than the last deal we looked at. And this particular deal will comply with PDC's equity policy and procedures, as well as the prevailing wage statutes. So in summary, it's a $2.4 million project. Mercado's bringing to the table $1.3 million in grants. Okay. PDC has a community livability grant of $201,000, and then there's the loans that I mentioned before of $900,000. Those loans, again, are structured because the rent's so low, the cash will be there to pay those loans back, and that's why they were structured that way. So the action before you today is to authorize the execution of a 5-year lease agreement between PDC and Portland Mercado LLC. And with that, I will turn it over to...
Why don't we again have the testimony from the folks, and then we'll bring you guys back up. Monica Moreno and Victor Merced. And while they're coming up, I'll also mention that we have received letters from the Foster Powell Neighborhood Association, the chair, expressing support, as well as the Mount Scott Arletta neighborhood, also the chair of that neighborhood association showing support, and that will also become part of the record. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Andrews. For the record, Victor Merced, Executive Director of Hacienda CDC, Commission members, and Executive Director, Mr. Quinton. I've been the Executive Director of Hacienda for almost 3 years now, and prior to that, I served on the cabinet of Governor Kulongoski as his housing director for the state of Oregon. And I must say, I must admit that I've never had the pleasure of working with PDC before. It's mainly been other housing agencies and other CDCs, and the experience has been absolutely incredible. And this might sound a little bit like the Oscars, but I would like to thank two people especially for their contribution to helping Hacienda move this forward. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. John Jackley. His belief in us and his proposal to move our project forward with a simple $12,000 DOS grant was spectacular. It helped us secure a site. It helped us do the market study. It helped us continue our work with our community and the Asamblea, whose members are here today. It was that faith in us and that belief that a community organization like Hacienda, and we're good at what we do. We're good at housing. We're good at developing things. But his faith in us to move this project forward was something that was reassuring. And secondly, I'd like to thank Director Quinton for his belief and never wavering in his support of our project. And I think it's been a great experience for our community. And I just want to state that for the record. As a matter of fact, the $12,000 investment by PDC helped us, as you saw before you, leverage $1.3 million in grants and other investments. We even have some private investors contributing a little bit of money into the project, including JP Morgan. And that's not all. We still have some outstanding proposals that we're working with some local foundations as well as another federal grant to bring in additional resources to this project. So I think with the support of PDC and the community, we really have been able to move this project forward. I'd also like to thank our Community Economic Development Director, Nathan Teskey, who you see walking around with a pink tie, bringing folks together. He doesn't wear ties, so that's why I decided to point that out. I think, in closing, I think what I'd like to just say is that for us, this is an expression of our Latinismo. We want to share our culture, we want to share our food, our arts, our crafts to the community, and this project embodies all of that. We've been working a long time to bring this project to fruition. Our culture, our food brings people together, and it resonates with the community. And so, again, on behalf of Hacienda, our Latino community, and the people of Lents, I'd just like to say in my vernacular, gracias. This has been a wonderful experience. Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to go next?
Hi, so my name is Sonia, and my mom is Monica Moreno, and I'm just here to support and show, translate too for her, so.
Thank you.
And well, we just want to give you thanks for this opportunity, and that this has been most family business, and we've had it for more than 8 years now. Me and my sister help my parents. We sell Mexican candy, so, and we just wanted to thank you, let you know that this is a great opportunity for us, and hopefully in the future it'll bring more jobs, and it's a great way for us to expand our business, so, and share, like he said, our culture, so it's really nice.
We like samples next time before the vote.
And dile también de las
So are
piñatas.
you going to be one of the trailers, or are you going to be part of the building itself?
Part of the building, we're
Part of the
inside.
building
We sell
itself.
Mexican candy, and we also make the piñatas. My mom makes them, so, and we help her and everything, so.
Thank you, and good luck. Questions
you.
or comments by
No.
any of our commissioners?
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for spending the
Thank
time
you.
with us today. We get our staff back at the table. I can say that I sit as an advisor on the Finance and Investment Committee, so I have seen this, I was going to say for years, and now I know it has been for years, because all the way back to the DOS grant to begin with. And I know a tremendous amount of work has gone in on this on both sides of the table. this is absolutely a fantastic location for this. I mean, from a location standpoint, it's great. The block itself is like perfect for this type of use. It's almost a triangle. There's access from a couple sides. There's an opportunity for the food cart or the cart businesses. It's just great that this location was available. My only question is I want to understand a little bit better the work or the comment or the piece that shows that the debt that it says in the option period, the rent would be structured to provide a 1.15 debt service coverage. Was that what the base rent originally was fixed on, or, I mean,
No, it's just, we don't know what the cash flow, again, the rent is
Okay.
only $1.
Right.
So it's nothing for the first 5 years.
Okay.
But we did not set a rent in the 61st because we really need to see how it's performing and make sure that the debt, there's enough cash flow there to really service the debt, which actually lasts through the 10 years.
Okay.
So we wanted to make sure the debt got paid first.
that makes sense. I just wanted to make sure that I understood it. And I'm going to give Commissioner Kelly first shot at it this time.
You know, this is, better turn that on. Since I've been on the commission, this is first time, there's two projects, the pub and this, where I say to myself, I'd like to go there. So, you know, actually thinking at the same time when I say that this is in fact a fairly risky project for PDC to support. But at the same time, I think that's our job to sometimes step out of the box a little bit and be supporting something that's really entrepreneurial and could in fact be, has the chance to be a really phenomenally successful project. So that's all I've got.
Commissioner Wilhoit.
I don't have any questions. I would just reiterate what Commissioner Kelly just said. This is the right kind of project, and it happened the right kind of way. And I've been here a little while, and you love to see projects that maybe come together faster, but when they take a little while, they come together the right way, and this was truly a partnership. So to work with Hacienda and all the folks at PDC who were involved, and to see this come together and to hear the story the way we've heard it, and the end result is a project that's great for the community, which makes it great for the city and great for the state. And it's, you know, cliche, but win, 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 and keep saying win, because the only thing we're waiting to see is the doors open and all the good things that happen with the project. So I want to wish everyone involved the best of luck and to congratulate you.
Commissioner Dixon?
I agree and want to reiterate what both of the fellow commissioners just said. I think this is such a big win story for PDC, and I want us to be able to take all the credit for it, because I think we deserve a little bit of credit in being able to put together a really fantastic community type of a project. And today it feels like Lents is the place to be, which is really exciting, and I think it deservingly so. So just, again, we want to fully support a project like this. There was a plan, it was well thought out, there's community support behind it, there's leverage of lots of different types of grants and funds, and the support of so many. And I think I'm just so excited for this project to have a really positive outcome, because I believe that people will look at this project for years to come and model after it, and that's what we want. So congratulations, thank you.
Executive Director Quinton.
No, I just, Victor was so kind to thank me for our work, and I just want to return. Projects like this happen because of community partners, and in fact, community leaders. This project was the brainchild of Hacienda. They showed the leadership on it, went out and raised money, and we'll support those kind of projects all day long. So it's fantastic to have a partner like Hacienda. And I just want to thank you for all the great work that you've done, and what a great community partner you are. And we look forward to maybe doing more projects, and look forward to working with other community partners in a similar way. Thanks.
Well, we've heard Mr. Jackley's name mentioned, and of
Yes.
course, we have
That's
the two
right.
staff in front of us, but are there others that in particular we ought to thank for?
So Gina, I'll turn to Gina since.
There were lots of PDC staff that touched this, and I feel like I'm at the Oscars now. I hope I don't miss anyone. SD Siegel, Steve Blank, Carol Hersberg was in charge of the community livability grant. Who else? Gina Bieland. I did mention Steve. So lots of folks were involved, and Bernie Krowski was in early on. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank everybody for all their hard work on this. It's really exciting. So I would look for a motion to approve Resolution 7044. Action item approving a lease agreement for Portland Development Commission owned property at 7238 Southeast Foster Road in the Lents Town Center Urban Renewal Area.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. Very good job.
Yep.
Next item is also an exciting action item, authorizing the sale of notes to Urban Heritage Portland Hotel LLC, a Delaware limited liability company, and Portland Hotel Fund LLC, a Delaware limited liability company, in an aggregate amount of approximately $11.5 million. This is Resolution 7045, and we have Gina and Lisa with us today. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair Andrews and Commissioner. I'm Lisa Abloff. I'm the Central City Manager with the Portland Development Commission. And we are before you today with an action related to our support of the renovation of the downtown Meyer and Frank building and the development of the Nines Hotel as part of the redevelopment of that building. More specifically, the action before you proposes authorizing the sale of PDC's notes to Urban Heritage Portland Hotel or by the Hotel Fund in an aggregate amount of approximately $11.5 million. Through this transaction, PDC would sell our remaining debt position of approximately $18 million at an approximate $2 million more than today's appraised value, and Gina will go into the specifics of that a bit later on. To begin with, I'm going to give a little bit of background on the project because this project goes back over 10 years in PDC's history. The renovation of the Meyer and Frank building was driven both by historic preservation and retail preservation priorities. The building is a prime example of Portland's unique terracotta architecture and is listed on the National Register. And Meyer and Frank was perhaps the most significant remaining historical anchor retail in the downtown core. However, at the time that we became involved with the project, the building had suffered from a lack of investment, in part due to the seismic and redevelopment costs that prohibited the private market from acting alone. In 2002, the board adopted the downtown retail strategy, a strategy that was developed in close partnership with various partners and retailers in the downtown. This strategy has since guided and continues to guide our investment in the downtown retail core. As you'll hear from project partners, the retention and rehabilitation of the Meyer and Frank building was identified as a #1 priority in that strategy. And I believe Jeff Miller of Travel Oregon and Sandy McDonough with the Portland Business Alliance are here to speak to their support in the past and their ongoing support. Concurrently, we pursued a feasibility study taking a look specifically at that building to determine highest and best use, and a hotel was identified as the best reuse option at that time. To take you back a bit in history, the partnership that resulted in these loans and in the redevelopment of that project has come before the board numerous times over the past 10 years. First, there was an agreement entered into between PDC and the May department stores in 2002 at the same time as the downtown retail strategy was adopted. A new and updated partnership was entered into with Sage Hospitality in 2005, reflecting a now condominium ownership between them and May, wherein the joint development would involve the first 5 floors being converted to retail or being preserved as retail, and the upper floors being converted to a high-quality hotel. And this is the rendering that resulted from that analysis. Amendments to the PDC Sage agreement occurred between 2005 and 2007, which reflected adjusting construction costs and an adjustment of resources to a new total project cost and value of over $140 million. It also involved PDC increasing its commitment to the project from $14 million to $17 million. And finally, in 2009, a modification to those loans came before the board. With each of these actions, the numerous public benefits of the project were reaffirmed by PDC and the board, together with the acknowledgement of the risk, similar to the risk that we are showing on other transactions here before you today, related to PDC's investment. So why did we invest? We invested with the understanding that our loans were in a position with significant risk, and we did so because our goals were to preserve a major retail anchor and historic building and to ensure a vibrant downtown retail core. not to necessarily pursue a market rate loan with a secure repayment via the project's cash flow loan. And what have we seen as a result? As a result, we have a renovated and retained Macy's anchor department store within the downtown retail core. We have 400 new full and part-time jobs. This is 100 plus more jobs than was originally predicted in 2005. We've leveraged $140 million renovation of the Meyer and Frank building, and when it comes back on the tax rolls in 8 years' time, that will result in approximately $1 million annually in property tax payments. And we've realized $15 million in economic impact over 5 years via the income and occupancy taxes generated as a result of the project. But perhaps more directly, you'll see the results on the downtown retail, which we've mapped in this map. So what you see in the blue is the Macy's as an anchor retailer. And what you see over time is the new retail that's been introduced and anchored the downtown retail core as a vital and competitive retail center to our suburban retailers. With that, I'm going to turn, if it clicks, the presentation over to Gina to walk you through a little bit more, not just about the public background, but about the specific transaction that's proposed before you today. There we go.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm Gina Bielen, Director of Real Estate and Lending here at PDC. And I'd like to share a little information about the financial structure of this transaction. As Lisa said at the very beginning, this has been an ongoing project that has a great deal of risk and a great deal of reward. As the picture shows, and it's used as a visual, that's the building. And from the top down, at the very top, you'll see there's almost $52 million in senior loan. Then there's a mezzanine loan of over $34 million. We have operating shortfall loans in excess of $12 million. And at the very bottom, there's the PDC loans, which principal and interest through December 31st, 2013, about $18.2 million. In the spring of 2013, Sage Hospitality approached PDC with an ability to restructure the debt that is currently on this transaction, which is shown in the picture, totaling over $117 million. This is a very complex transaction structured with new market tax credit dollars. When you use new market tax credit dollars, you are not able to sell the property, prepay any principal debt anytime during the 7-year compliance period. In addition to that, you're not able to grant money into the structure for purposes of using the new markets tax credit. Therefore, any amount of money we could have used to lever in a grant had to be in the form of debt in order to make this structure absolutely pencil. So with that being said, Sage was proactive when they realized that at the end of the new markets tax credit structure, they would be required to pay and refinance all of the debt that is currently reflected on the picture to the left above PDC. This particular project actually opened in the fourth quarter of 2008, proceeding at the very top of the market as it quickly turned in that quarter. It continued on, throwing off over $15 million in realized benefits through tax incentive paid taxes over a 5-year period of time. What Sage offered to PDC was to purchase the $18.2 million for $11.5 million. They were approached with an opportunity to structure a transaction whereby the person offering to restructure the transaction was willing to pay $11.5 million to secure repayment of the PDC loans. What will happen is that a public entity will be taking over the controlling activity of the hotel, and in exchange, Sage Hospitality, while they will not be returned on any of their equity, they will have a 10-year hospitality contract with the hotel. This assures that the Nines will stay in place as a Starwood hotel for at least the next 10 years, maintaining the same level of excellence that it has to date. We then went forward with the idea that we wanted to look at what the current market would bear in terms of evaluation of our notes. This took into account a variety of things, including the capital markets, the hospitality market, and the overall structuring of our notes. We have 2 notes that mature in 2015. We have one that matures in 2021 and one that matures in 2031. What Jones, Lang, and LaSalle did is they took a look at the current market the rate, and they applied a discount to obtain what would be considered a current value of these particular loans. And their range for these particular loans, based upon the structure of the loans, the interest rate, and the term, a value of $9 to $9.6 million if we were to sell them in today's market. This is roughly $2 million less than we had been offered in repayment or repurchase of these loans. In addition, I just want to highlight one factor, and that is even if we were to sell these on the current market, in today's market, there's the concept of present value of money. And in a strong economy, if you were selling debt that still has maturity anywhere from 10 to 20 years out, you would see at least a 50% discount. And if you were looking to sell out in the probably 2 to 5 year period with a healthy note in a strong economy, you would still be seeing approximately a 30% overall discount in value, so that you could actually reinvest those funds in today's market and not have to wait the 10 or 20 years to see the return of the notes. So the action summary is to authorize the sale or repayment of notes to Urban Heritage Portland Hotel or by Portland Hotel Fund in an aggregate amount of approximately $11.5 million. Questions?
I think we will again ask for those who have signed up to testify to do so and ask questions and then bring you up just to make sure that we've got everything on the table. I have Sean Sullivan, Jeff Miller, and Sandy McDonough.
Good afternoon, Chair Andrews, Commissioners, Executive Director Quinton. My name is Sean Sullivan. I'm a resident of the River District Urban Renewal area. And I used to attend the Urban Renewal advisory committees that existed for this district. And so one of my concerns about this proposed transaction was that there's been a lack of public outreach, a lack of public participation. And so from my perspective, since the advisory committee has disbanded, there's been a real lack of engagement with residents in the URA. Another point I wanted to make, I have not gotten a clear explanation as to why Sage Hospitality is unable to repay the full balance. That's really not been stated. I'm not aware if anyone from Sage is here today to speak to that issue. I was a little curious about Sage Hospitality and their business, so I looked at their website this week and noticed that they had a press release 3 weeks ago announcing that they had just acquired 11 new hotels nationwide. And so my question is, if they have the resources to acquire 11 new hotels, why don't they have the resources to repay this loan?
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Chair Andrews and members of the Commission. My name is Sandra McDonough, and I'm President and CEO of the Portland Business Alliance. We also operate the Downtown Clean and Safe District on behalf of downtown property owners, and we manage the Downtown Retail Council. I'm here to support the restructuring of the loan for the Nines Hotel. If you remember 10, 20 years ago, downtowns across the United States were faced with a very tough retail landscape. We were seeing flagship stores close, and that was devastating to many cities and many once very vital urban downtowns like Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Washington, D.C., and others. As these cities lost their retail anchors, their downtowns became inactive, and frankly, the whole city suffered from that. We had our own challenges here in Portland when Federated Department Stores purchased Meyer & Frank, and that called into question the future of what was clearly our most important flagship store in downtown. It was the retail anchor for our entire downtown retail area. But in Portland, We have a different relationship with our downtown, and we didn't let it wither. Instead, we got together, and our collective response to the potential loss of Meyer and Frank was to double down in our investment rather than walking away. And that has resulted in the thriving downtown environment that you see today. And I personally believe that the single most important factor to getting to the strong and healthy downtown that we have today was the redevelopment of the Meyer and Frank block led by the Portland Development Commission. Downtown Portland faces significant competition from suburban shopping centers, and I'm not just talking about Washington Square and Clackamas Town Center, both of which have had significant reinvestment in the last few years, but also new kinds of shopping, like the streets of Tanasbourne, Bridgeport Village, Cascade Station, and others. Our challenge has been, and will continue to be in the future, keeping downtown fresh, vital, and attractive to shoppers from throughout the region and from out of town. And that is a constant effort, and it's one that we work on virtually every day in a public-private partnership that involves many entities. Developing the Meyer and Frank block into the new flagship Macy's and the five-star Nines Hotel was the catalytic development that facilitated and the creation and execution of the downtown retail strategy, starting in 2002 and then renewed in 2009. City leaders and business owners have worked together to develop and implement a plan to enhance retail vitality in our downtown core. That working group has included several mayors, Downtown Clean and Safe, the Portland Business Alliance, Portland Mall Management, Inc., Travel Portland, and of course the Portland Development Commission. We've created a signature pioneer shopping district, put new landscaping on Yam Hill and Morrison, developed a year-round marketing effort to promote downtown, leveraging both public and private dollars. And during the depths of the recession, we created my favorite program by activating vacant storefronts with our very successful PDX pop-up shops that have been copied across the country. And we worked on targeted retail recruitment with a very strong focus on developing local retail and bringing them downtown. We have been just phenomenally successful. In 2013 alone, over 45 new businesses opened in our retail core, the area that is anchored by Macy's and the Nines Hotel. More retailers will be opening in 2014, you know some of the big ones. And today our downtown retail vacancy rate is 4.5%. That is just a phenomenal level, and we are the envy of cities across this country with that. It has been an incredible team effort that got us there, and I want to thank PDC, led by Patrick and others, for working with us and making our downtown the great place it is to live, work, shop, and come as a tourist. And we continue to continue working with you all in the future. Thanks very much.
Chair Andrews, Commissioners, I'm here to tell you today that the Nines has been a huge success for us in Portland, and especially the hospitality community. But I also want to start with dispelling the often reported discussion about their $99 room rates when they opened and how they drove down the price of hotel rooms in Portland.
Jeff, introduce yourself.
CEO of Travel Portland. Thank you. Jeff Miller. So every hotel in the city was doing that at the same time, and there were all those same hoteliers that were complaining had their own strategy to steal business from the Nines. These were a few rooms on the interior, and I will tell you that across the country we were in a deep recession and we went in really quickly. What's happened since then has been nothing short of phenomenal. When you look at the success of the hospitality community, we came out of the recession faster than anyone else, and we've really come to new heights. The Nines has been a big part of that. As we look at the ecosystem of hotels as we sell the convention business, we need everything from limited service to small boutiques to four-star luxury hotels like the Nines. And so having this as part of our arsenal to offer to meeting planners and to the leisure traveler has really changed the way we've done business in Portland and improved our ability to attract new business to Portland. It's a prime block. It was a key to the downtown retail core. And when you look at the statistics, which I just reported on the state of the industry, hotel occupancies in Portland and the Central City have remained very, very high. We're at 78.7% in 2013 versus 76% the year before. The average daily rate went up to $143.55 from $133.69, a $15 increase. And we have to give the nines some credit here because they are leading the rate increase. They are not following, they are leading, and everyone else gets to draft off of that huge success. Revenue, so the revenues are up 11% just in last year, and when you look at tax collections for the year, the fiscal year from July, we're up another 11.6% in tax collections, of which the city of Portland gets 5%, and that's over growth of 10% the year before. The jobs created also in the hospitality industry are really vital, and these jobs in particular, because it added another layer of luxury hospitality that people in hospitality careers could aspire to. So that's been a huge success. And when you look at those frontline all the way up to executive jobs, they are really good jobs, and the career path is very defined. We also, there are ancillary benefits to having something like the Nines and Departures Restaurant. We just took Gregory Gourdet to Japan with us to kick off the launch of a book that we helped fund with Surf Media Japan called True Portland, The Unofficial Guide for Creative People. And Gregory went over and did a lot of cooking demonstrations, and having the Nines and Departures behind us, it's the #1 guidebook in Amazon Japan, which is truly phenomenal. I'll leave a copy for you. So it really connects the economic development efforts that certainly you, Greater Portland Inc., PBA, and we have all together, and to have a personality like Gregory and the Departures and Nines as a part of that was really terrific, and it really puts us on a different playing field than we've ever been. Also, having those funds to reinvest as you approve this, and getting those funds into other districts where we can leverage against them makes a huge difference for all of us to see that same success in other parts of the cities. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank the three of you for taking the time to be with us today. The two of you for everything that you've done for Portland. Sean, for your service. And if you don't hear the answers to your questions here today, I would be happy to follow up with you. I'm sure Patrick would, or Gina, who's responsible for the department that's taken a look at this, because I want to assure you that we've taken a hard look at this.
We can answer when staff come back.
Sure.
Up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, thank you so much. Staff back to the table again. And while they're coming, I'll start by saying I moved back to Portland in 1978, and one of the first civic things that I did was join the Association for Portland Progress. And in the early 80s, you might remember we had a bit of a recession that lasted most of the 80s. And the first volunteer job I had with APP actually was called the Alder Street Renovation Program. One of the first things that had happened was that Alder had long been sort of a little fashion boutique street, and it had become just full of vacancies and landlords putting in short-term occupancies, and things were not very positive. And even in those days, so I'm talking like 1983, 93, 2003, so we're talking 30 years ago, there was a real worry among everyone who was interested in seeing a strong downtown Portland about what the future of the Meyer and Frank building was. Meyer and Frank had continually reduced its footprint, had made it absolutely clear that there was going to become a point where the building just overwhelmed its operation and that they were going to have to go someplace else. And there was attempt after attempt after attempt from the mid-'80s to this point to come up with a solution for it. And there were a lot of looks at it, a lot of different kind of looks at it. Frankly, at the end of the day, I think the combination of being able to keep Macy's, which is the current owner of, well, bought Meyer and Frank. Meyer and Frank doesn't exist anymore, but they're part of that history of this chain, to keep them in that location and to put a first-class hotel on the top of it was absolutely the highest and best use. About 6 years ago, the then Mayor Sam Adams asked me to co-chair the downtown retail strategy with him, and we pulled together 55 downtown folks, that owners, retailers, architects, engineers, you name it, politicians, and we took a hard look at downtown and we came up with a plan that I think has been very successful. If you take a look at what's happened at Yamhill and Morrison in the last couple of years, it's nothing less than phenomenal. And I can tell you that we wouldn't come close to that. We wouldn't have even been able to start it if that building was sitting empty. We wouldn't have even been able to start that process. So I think that this was a key project that goes far, far beyond a loan to a department store development that, and the loan at the end of the day was with the nines. I know a lot of due diligence has been done, and I know you guys have a lot of questions. There were two that came up in the press in the last couple of days, and I know that you can answer them. One of them was, would we have the ability to actually declare them in default and take the building in bankruptcy? And you might go on to say why that probably wouldn't be a really good thing. And answer that one, and I'll come up with the other one.
Currently, they're not in default. They're performing under the terms and conditions in accordance with the 2009 modifications. So at this point in time, the answer would be no. Two of the notes mature in 2015. If in fact, for whatever reason, they were not paid at maturity, at that point in time, PDC would have the ability to any rights and remedies allowed in the documents, which could include foreclosure action. In order to have a first position in a foreclosure, PDC would be required to pay over $98 million of the debt senior to us in order to be in a first lien position. In addition to that, you would be looking at default interest rates, attorney's fees, as well as regular interest rates between December 31, 2013 and March of 2015. So you're carrying some of your mezzanine debt at 11.3% interest, so you'd be looking at probably an additional $10 million. So well over $108 to $110 million would be senior to PDC debt.
Thanks. And actually, I'm going to answer the second question because I think I can, and you can help me if I've got it wrong. The second question really was one that came through the Oregonian, and it was, why, the question was asked to the public, why don't we wait until the hotel market gets better and get paid off the entire sum? And what I thought was interesting was, as Jeff pointed out, the hotel market is good. It doesn't have to do with the current hotel market. It has to do with the amount of debt that is on this project that was required to do the refurbishment. And chances are 3, 4, 5 years out, one of two things could happen. Either the market is softer, both from a percentage standpoint of occupancy as well as perhaps rates, or even more difficult, what we have all thought it would happen by now, and that is an increase in interest rates, where all of this debt becomes even more expensive. So I think that we are at a point in time where we are fortunate enough to have interest in someone to see this loan structure collapse and give us an opportunity, frankly, to get more than what is currently market value for those loans. Did I miss anything?
Excellent job.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, just to answer Sean's question more directly, because I think it's a legitimate question that needs to be answered. So the way the deal is structured, the hotel can do quite well, generate cash flow, and it's still not make it down to our loan. So we use the term waterfall in describing these structures, and it does kind of illustrate what has to happen. There has to be cash flow to come down and make this payment, and then the next payment, and the next payment. So it was structured in a way that was very risky, as Lisa said up front. So the conditions that have to exist for there to be cash flow to pay us back were actually pretty. It would be a rare event for them all to come together, and we knew that going in. So I think that was stated up front. We knew going in that we were taking on almost equity-like risk, and then Sage itself isn't really refinancing out this deal. This money is coming from a different investor, and Sage is writing off all of their equity in the project. So how much equity does Sage have in the deal that they're writing off?
I would like to defer to them. It's structured throughout the waterfall, so
Okay,
there's,
so
it's
yeah.
the historic tax credits, different entities have different amounts going into it.
Right, so Sage is writing off their equity in this project, and the added cost relates entirely to this project. It's beyond just a hotel, it's a project. So there was significant investment made in the building, and that would have been invested in the building regardless of what enterprise was operating in there. So there's all sorts of debt on this project that are unrelated to the operations of a hotel. So there's no way a hotel is going to absorb the ability to repay all that. And as a real estate transaction, most of these are set up with limited liability. So the liability sits within this project and within the entities, so it doesn't carry over to other entities. So Sage itself could be a healthy organization with successful hotels elsewhere and still not have liability outside of this operation for this project. So I know that there's this heartburn about this being writing off of a loan, but the conditions would be rare for us to get full payoff of the loan amount as it appears up there.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to start off with our forensic accountant. Commissioner Wilhoit.
I think the briefing that I had was very clear, a lot of questions back and forth. I think the presentation has been very clear. And I think what is more significant is when you hear Sandy McDonough and Jeff come up and talk about this being in the center of our city and how critical it was for something to happen. And I know I've read some comments and people are saying, or at least some people suggest, well, someone would have come in and done something. And, that's a possibility, but I passed by a lot of Third and Oak downtown and I still see an empty lot. So when we look at the timing of the circumstances and what needed to happen with regard to this particular site, I think we engaged in a transaction that required us to be very creative and take a risk position. And as I sit here today and having listened to the projects that just came before us at Lents, same type of situation, just a larger scale. And it's in the center of our downtown. So I honestly can't remember when exactly the project was voted on, but if we went backwards in time and it was structured a little differently and we didn't have the tax credits, I think we would have been perfectly willing to put a grant into this type of a project so that we made sure we did what needed to be done to maintain the center of our city. And we saw the dot matrix with all the other investments that have occurred since this particular project was developed. So I'm perfectly fine with the circumstances. Obviously, we want to collect as much as we can on any particular debt, but we're in a position to accelerate receipt of funding. We're going to get $11.5 million. Some of these dollars weren't going to be paid back until 2031. So being a financial guy and your time value of money concept, if you bring it forward, you're willing to give something up. We're giving something up to accelerate the receipt of the funds, and we're also considering that we're eliminating the risk that we would not get funds down the road. So I appreciate all the disclosures, all the discussion. I appreciate all the testimony, but from my perspective and from PD's perspective and the community's perspective, we're taking an inflow of cash that we can then reinvest in the community, and we're getting it much sooner, and we're eliminating a risk position. So I'm very comfortable with the structure as it's laid out.
Thank you, Commissioner Kelly.
So my perspective on this is after taking the two votes earlier that I could really get excited about in saying yes, I'm going to still say yes on this one, but the last 5 or 6 years economically have been incredibly disruptive, and the fact that we're even able to recover what we're recovering out of this is, I think, it really comes down to a very pragmatic business decision to do this, is what it comes down to. When I try to, these are bigger numbers than I deal with in my business, but when I try to put in perspective what I would do if it was my decision to make for my business, this is a pragmatic business decision to reduce the risk, because if we don't do this, we may not get anything. And I think that has to be acknowledged and understood that, year or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 or whenever these all come due, there may not be anything there. So I don't like it, but I'm going to vote for it.
I'm sorry, Chair Andrews, can I? We didn't emphasize much that we did get these notes valued, and the offer that we're facing at 11.5 million is well above the appraised value of the notes, and I think it's worth clarifying why that circumstance exists, as far as why we would be getting an offer at 11.5 when we had an independent party tell us these notes are worth between 9 and 9.6 million.
Well, the particular entity that's come in to restructure the debt and the controlling of this particular property, what they did is they took a look at their overall project and they allocated this amount towards the purchase of the PDC loans and then brought the offer through Sage to us. After that, we actually decided to have them appraised, our loans appraised. We didn't have them appraised first. And so what we wanted to make certain was that given the market conditions, a third-party certified appraiser would be able to comment as to the current market value of our notes.
Yeah, from my perspective, we did not ask to sell these notes. From my perspective, we are being asked to sell these notes so that a transaction can happen. And yes, there's being some equity being eaten, but from my perspective, we should get more than the value to do this. And I'm satisfied that we've looked at it and negotiated an amount that makes sense, that we get a piece of that kind of the upside. I think that's, to me, that's where it is. Commissioner Dixon.
Well, what is left to be said? I've been reading the paper and following this project the best I can, but obviously, as you said, this was something that we took on over 10 years ago, and I'm assuming that the board members of that time knew the risk that they were taking when we decided to invest in this project. And today, we're faced with how do we mitigate, the risk for our agency, and it just seems like there's no other smart option. So really, if we want to see anything and be able to reinvest these funds, and it sounds like even if this were to have happened a year ago, we probably would see absolutely nothing. That today, even though this is not a happy news story, it's better than what it could have been. And I do also think that the vitality of what this project created is something that's really important, and I hope that when we were planning for this project, we knew that this was going to be part of that, and so that the outcome of investing in this project will not obviously be a complete waste of our funds.
Thank you. Executive Director Quinton, do you have any more?
I gave you my take on
Your take
the
on
rationale for the deal. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think to that point, at the end of the day, I think what Gina pointed out to begin with was under the circumstances of getting this project happening, we easily would have made a $5 or a $6 or a $7 million grant.
Right.
But quite frankly, a loan made more sense within the structure because it allowed us to lever more in terms of the historic tax credits. So I wasn't there at the time, so I can't tell you I didn't expect to get the money back.
Right.
But I can tell you, I think to get that project done, we would have done a grant that wouldn't have required a payment.
Yeah.
And then we wouldn't even be talking about this.
No.
Right.
Exactly.
I do want to thank you for your historical recap, but I'll point out that one of the commissioners probably wasn't alive when you went back that far.
I was like about
that
one
mean?
or two.
Ooh, that hurt. Dang. All right, I will look for a motion to approve Resolution 7045, action item authorizing the sale of notes to Urban Heritage Portland Hotel LLC, a Delaware limited liability company, and Portland Hotel Fund LLC, a Delaware limited liability company, in an aggregate amount of approximately $11.5 million.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. And thank you for all your work on this, Gina. And you know, in particular, I know you've spent a lot of time and effort on it. Okay, at this point, we are going to adjourn the PDC meeting to convene a local contract review board meeting. We will reconvene the PDC building after that so that we can go into executive session. Do I have anything else that I need to say before that? Okay, perfectly. And actually, I'm going to say we got a 5-minute break. Thank you.